All right, in today's media landscape, I've always said this that we're so inundated with garbage that the moment something remotely good comes along, people are strange to act to it. They don't know what to do with the information that they're getting. They're getting something that is actually stimulating to their minds, as opposed to the same garbage, just woke drivel, makes no sense, does nothing but elevate people who give two shits about making something iconic or legendary. So when the 28 years later trailer came out about 7 or 8 months ago, I actually didn't know how to respond to it. It gave me goosebumps. It is a fucking amazing trailer, and I truly, truly just like watching it even after I've seen the movie, which recently came out on digital, and I watched the other night. Now, this is a movie that is deeply dividing for people. People have honest and true opinions. There are criticisms I have of the movie. There are things that you can easily pick apart across the board. But in reality, for me, this is a movie that I enjoyed. It was intellectually stimulating, and I freaking loved it, and I'm going to talk about it. Now, this is definitely going to contain spoilers, so if you don't want that, I'd go watch it right now. If you haven't seen it in the theaters or want to see it on digital or however, just go and see it. It's like for sure not going to be a complete waste of time. People are going to say, "Oh, it's terrible. Oh, this is I didn't like it. Awful." This is a movie worth watching. All of the movies, all three of them are good. They're excellent zombie movies. The first one is just very, very, very off putting and freaky. The second one has that same feel to it, but is a little bit more on a bigger scale. And then this one kind of goes back and is a combination of the two, where it has some scenes that are, more militaristic and a lot of scenes that are just deeply, deeply off putting. So the movie starts off basically pretty simple. 28 years later, the people are still on the Isles, surviving. They're just like a nomadic tribe of people. And we get old Aaron Taylor Johnson, who I think is a great actor. He's in a lot of stuff nowadays. He's certainly a better choice than Pedro Pascal, and he doesn't seem like a generally that bad of a dude. He's actually pretty cool, and he does a great part in this movie. Now, this movie, I'm going to use this a lot, is subverts expectations. You think it's going to be a certain way, and it ends up being a little different, if not completely different than what you think. And a lot of us were thinking Aaron Taylor Johnson was going to be this, main figure. He's going to go around kicking ass. He was going to be the central part of the plot of the movie, and that turns out not to be the case. It's actually the son, who discovers his dad is up to no good, and he doesn't believe anymore in the group, and he leaves to find a cure for his mom, and he just thinks of a world better than the way they live, after his dad is not turns out not to be the person he thinks he is. So that's actually truly the biggest criticism I have of the movie, is that I really wasn't that invested in the kid's story. It seemed like a absurdly stupid idea for the kid to just go off on his own because, hey, you could save your mom from this disease or whatever she's got, which in the end, spoiler alert, turns out he can't even save her. But I mean, the risk is like a million times worse than what he was actually going for in the first place. They were way more likely to get killed by infected than to go and find this cure. So maybe it's playing with the idea that young kids are stupid, make dumb decisions. They don't think things through. They think with emotions. But whatever it was, it led me to believe that he was just going to go off and get killed. And in many cases, that almost became the truth. And at the end of the film, it all didn't matter anyway because mom was dying. So that whole thing was, to me, it was part of the movie that I didn't necessarily like. I didn't really want to see. It was something that was kind of a little bit annoying to me that the kid was just there and didn't really care, didn't really seem like a heroic endeavor. And to me, the whole thing felt pointless after Aaron Taylor Johnson just kind of left. He just kind of was gone after that. So I mean, that part really bugged me. But other than that, there was some stunningly interesting parts of the movie. It was very, very, very off-putting at parts. Some of the scenes, like the alpha ripping off the guys' heads, or the bone temple cleansing people's heads. It was just very, very freaky and made you really think that something was, creepy was lurking around the corners and that there was badness going on. That feeling has a unique feeling in movies. Is whenever you can take and see a movie that has these grotesque scenes that make you squirm inside, you really think to yourself that, this is a dark world and it's very off-putting and it's kind of interesting, to see. And it's gritty and realistic, and the parts with the soldiers are really, really dope, even the short amount of time they're in it. It has all these scenes that are really like the way that they are a way that they feel. They feel really gritty. They give you that feeling in the pit of your stomach that it's like, ooh, this is weird and creepy. The fat zombies going around eating earthworms was very creepy and still gives you haunting nightmares. The alphas are freaky. The whole like concept of a feral society of zombies is interesting and unique, and I like that side of the movie. And there's really no criticisms I have towards the fact that this feral evolution of these zombies was a prevalent theme in the movie, and it was very, very, very cool. So on to the obvious weird parts of the movie. There are plenty of them. It's scattered throughout the movie, and I can very much appreciate the people who made this movie's like vision on making something that subverts expectations. That was the key word of this movie. Is it just what you got from the trailer and what it became was something completely warped and different. So I appreciate that. But some of the scenes just really were not good. A lot of people are going to go to the end scene when you got the weird, what are those pikeys from Snatch jumping around, knocking people's heads off. For me, that was kind of goofy and fun, and that was kind of, it felt bizarre and weird. So I didn't really have that much of an issue with that ending. Maybe I'm kind of interested to see more about this community. Like how did these people become this like, valiant group of fuck it of pikeys jump around doing flips and moves, killing that. It took you out of the reality of the film, but at the same time, it did prove some interesting to me. But for me, the real part that floundered the movie was when he gets to that bone temple, and there's this whole weird thing with death and life, and he's cleaning the skulls off and he's building this bone temple and talking about all this philosophy. For me, it was just like, I don't know. It was just off-putting, like it's just an off-putting scene. You see all those skulls, and maybe that's what they were going for. But for me, that was a kind of a downside. Just very, very weird. Another thing too for the movie is this whole premise of how they're, how these like babies are being born that are not infected. Like, wouldn't you be cautious of a baby born out of infected? Like, wouldn't touch it, even if it looked like a non-infected baby. Like, what if it's a carrier? So there's lots of logic dips in this movie, and there's lots of scenes where you're just like, what? Like, why even do that? Um, the soldiers getting stuck in the dark place. It's just the whole part of the movie just felt like there was a lot of just senselessness, and yeah, there was parts where you're just like, why do that? Um, And yeah, leaving the community for the kid, that was a big one I highlighted. It just felt like, come on, like the kid has been terrified of zombies his entire life. He's gonna just go out in the wilderness with his mom all alone and think that that's gonna work. It had to have something to do with the stupidity of kids, because to me it was just so out of left field. And I liked Aaron Taylor Johnson, wanted to see more of him. He just kind of was just there and then gone. So I mean, there was scenes that I didn't really like. But on to this good stuff, and oh man, is there a lot of good parts in this. there there is so much good to be had here, and there's so much like thinking that you have to do with the movie. Like, I love the idea of the community at the beginning. You know, you got this nomadic community of people who have found a way to just survive. You know, they've got an isolated base. They've got a rigorous set of rules and ideals to help them survive in this deeply hostile but yet fruitful world where, you know, there's no environmental catastrophe. There's nature is there to help them just as much as it always has been, and human society could thrive theoretically in an isolated, you know, situation like that. And it brings it back to, you know, the prepping world of today we have, that if society collapsed and, you know, the nuclear war or whatever happened, there's a good chance that human beings could survive just with whatever we could find and make it work, much like we did in the past. But with today's knowledge and, you know, collective consciousness of today, it would theoretically be a lot easier for a group of modern millennials to survive than, like, you know, a town full of medieval, you know, medieval farm workers. So, you know, they've got things like, you know, codes and defenses and ideas that really help them just thrive in this world. And as long as they stick to those things, they generally do okay. And that premise I found extremely fascinating. Wish we got more of it. Maybe we'll get more of it. Who knows? But, you know, they decided to only do about a third of the film on that. So I mean, that is something to consider. The alphas I found so cool. They were these big hulking beastly infected, you know, like they described, you know, the infections like steroids. It turns them into like super mutants almost. And the scenes when they rip the guys, the two scenes where they, you know, basically predator kill, you know, directly copied from the way Predator does it. He just rips their head out of their spinal cord, and like that and spinal cord out of their body, and that is just absolutely grotesque to think about being in that position for those people who got it. And I had to watch that scene about like 5 different times over, of the guy getting, you know, whatever it's called, his skull ripped out. But I mean, yeah, it's just the premise of these big hulking dudes with these, the, you know, the Johnsons flapping around. It's a weird thing, and it's really scary to think like what you would do in the face of one of these and what they could do to you. And we didn't really get much of a like size comparison. They didn't. I thought at first they were like giant men, but they were kind of just like big, tall dudes that, you know, they didn't have like a massive, completely massive size to them. But, you know, I was trying to gauge that whole movie, like how big are these things. So I mean, the alphas, so cool, awesome idea added to them. I don't know what the thing was with the fat ones. You know, are they just like a different group of them? Was that just how some of them survived, and you know, they kind of mutated or evolved into these kind of ground dwellers type of things? There's a lot of interesting concepts like that, and that's one of the movie's biggest strengths, is that it definitely made you see some cool stuff with like what they were doing with the lore, so to speak, 28 years later. Because you got to remember that the Rage virus is like the worst of the worst viruses. Yeah, in video games, you know, like Left 4 Dead and stuff, we've had, you know, like very bad zombie outbreaks where like they mutate into these hulking forms, and like these are bad situations. But on a realistic basis, the rage virus is so terrible, you catch it like so easily. You instantly transform. You instantly infect. That would spread like no tomorrow, and that would be a theoretical like end of days situation for the world. And there's some greater lore at play. The island's in quarantine zone. There's not really much idea of what happens with the rage virus in the rest of the world, but I think that ambiguity of 28 years later is pretty fascinating. And yeah, the rage virus is obviously just, there's a lot more to it than what we thought. And it's super cool to learn about that lore, so to speak. So yeah, in essence, 28 years later, it's a good movie. It's a firm 8 for me. There's no massive downsides that makes it not worth watching. It's bizarrely unwoke. Like I don't think there's any single other person of color in the movie. It is very grounded in just what it sets out to do. There's not really many political messages in it, besides the fact that it's just a weirdly bizarre world in the future. Lots of death, lots of chaos, lots of confusion. And, it just is a movie. And it's going to divide, it definitely divided people on opinions, because there are parts of the movie that I never want to see again. And there are parts of the movies that I want to watch over and over again. Shit with the alpha and the soldiers and stuff, and the community. So I mean, it's a good movie. It's a movie that really subverts your expectations, but it's got some parts in it that are kind of annoying, and they were playing with a little too much. And it's at the end of the day, it's just kind of a movie that is a movie worth watching. And it's like, you can't really ask for much more in today's world, when we're so inundated with, what's the newest Marvel bullshit, what's the stupid new, Pedro Pascal movie, or what's the newest Star Wars like TV series, or like, there is so much shit media nowadays that when we get a movie that is actually worth thinking about and watching, it's special. It's like you gotta take these things and realize that we don't get a movie like 28 years later every day, and that's because it's just so much different than what everyone was anticipating. It could have been so easy for them just to make a generic zombie movie. It's just, there's nothing more to it, but it's it's worth watching. It's a movie that you should go and rent and see, and I would think that everybody who wanted to see it had probably seen it by now. It's a movie that is, the second I saw that trailer like 8 months ago or whatever, like however long that first trailer with that really good walk bam, 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 that I was like, I gotta see this movie. Like the movie, the trailer still to this day gives you goosebumps, and the movie does a very different, but admittedly very good job of representing what was in that trailer. And you can just tell sometimes from a trailer, man, this is gonna be a banger, and this was a banger movie. I would even so much bring it up to an 8.5 at parts, because it just fulfills what it needs to do. It's a zombie movie plus. It's a zombie movie plus one. It's a good zombie movie. It has some very unique parts in it. It has some terrifying moments in it, and it has some just very very thought-provoking movies. So I think it's a great movie. Let me know what you think. It's gonna be a movie that we're gonna get more of this kind of stuff. So we'll see. Who knows, those pikeys might just come and save the day to that community. Be up Aaron Taylor Johnson, and then take over it. So I mean, there's a million different things they can do with this, and just an isolated interesting story like this that's just there is a worthy mention. And I think that they did a good job with it ultimately. So yeah, that's my review. 8 to 8.5. Good movie, definitely worth seeing 28 years later.